Dating apps, they cater to the male perspective on dating, which is why men use it. That's why so many men use it, because it makes sense to them. Women see it and they're like, why the fuck is anyone using this? Like, every woman that I have talked to about Tinder, they've always been like, yeah, I don't like it, it's gross, I don't know why people use it, only lonely people use it, I don't want to use it. Okay, even if I'm lonely. I don't like that's what they say. That's the common sentiment I hear from women. But men, on the other hand, they will say, oh yeah, it sucks. I have a terrible time on there, but it's just because I need to make my profile better. Right? That's why. Like, I need to get bigger muscles and take better pictures, and that's it. Okay? And that's because men see this shit as a game, okay? They do. It's just a game to them. It's fucking stupid, man. Men are dumb, okay? Women are dumb too. Moving on. Now we're watching Mentis Wave talk about the same shit that we just heard Shoe on Head talk about. Let's go. This video is called The Male Loneliness Crisis, why the media lies about it. In typical Mentis Wave fashion, he's putting some kind of quote on I don't know who said this, but it says, "The Western world has quietly become a civilization that has tainted the interaction between men and women. This is unfair to both genders and is a recipe for a rapid civilizational decline." Ayn Rand? I actually don't know that one.
Hey internets, you may have heard of something known as the male loneliness crisis. And in this video, I'm going to explain why the true cause of it is much more interesting than most people realize, and also how this true cause goes back much further in history than most people realize as well. But to start off, here's a quick rundown of just what this crisis is and how we know it is actually happening, and not just an example of victim perception bias, where people just feel like something in society is specifically designed to screw them even when there really isn't. No, in this case, the male loneliness crisis is definitely a real thing. Many young men these days are walking the dark alleys of life alone in ways that
not really. Not really, because it's not just men that are lonely. Okay, it's women. It's everyone. It's young people, it's old people. Loneliness is a feeling, right? It's not really like a physical thing. It's not like we're all alone constantly. You know, no. This loneliness is manufactured by something else, by a system.
The older generations, and most women in general, could never possibly comprehend. And we know this for two reasons. For one, there's a lot of data that converges to show that it's definitely happening, with the most commonly cited statistic being the fact that the percentage of young men who aren't getting any has been steadily on the rise over the last few decades, with a notable spike around 2008. But there's a lot more to it than that. For example, the percentage of men who report that they have no close friends at all has increased in the last 3 decades as well. Young men are also more likely to have no partner than women. In the United States especially, young men are more likely to report that they have feelings of loneliness in general. And of course, there's the fact that the marriage rate has been steadily declining since the mid-1960s. And then of course, there's the fact that women tend to be significantly more picky when it comes to online dating choices, rating the vast majority of men as unattractive. And thus the bar for a man to actually get into a relationship and get out of his loneliness hole is notably higher. It's also important to point out that when it comes to victimhood perceptions, this is a case where we know that the opposite effect would be relevant. Because when it comes to self-reported data and differences between self-reported data and revealed data, most of the data is actually based on things that men tend to underreport, whereas women tend to actually overreport it, which means that the real data is actually probably worse than this. And then the second reason that we know that the male loneliness epidemic is real is because the arguments against it being real are completely ridiculous, ranging from psychological projection to anecdotal experiences, and of course, let's not forget the just make more friends.
Alright, wait, hold on. Sorry, he just hit us with a lot of shit. And I got this. Let me replay that.
And most women in general.
I was thinking about something else.
And we know this for two reasons. For one, there's a lot of data that converges to show that it's definitely happening, with the most commonly cited statistic being the fact that the percentage of young men who aren't getting any has been steadily on the rise over the.
Okay, no, that's not what that means. No, you're saying that men aren't fucking, so therefore they're not. First of all, I question the validity of this statistic in ORC, right? Because I know for a fact that women ain't fucking either. Okay, that is like it's not like men are a statistical anomaly in this situation here. Okay, men and women, Gen Z, they ain't fucking. Okay, they're not. Why is that? Oh, it's a big mystery. It's a big old mystery. But anyway, that's not why we're lonely. unironically, it's one component in it. I'll give you that. Okay, it is like one relatively small aspect of the loneliness, the collective loneliness that everybody is feeling.
The last few decades, with a notable spike around 2008. But there's a lot more to it than that. For example, the percentage of men who report that they have no close friends at all has increased in the last 3 decades as well. Young men are also more likely to have no partner than women. In the United States especially, young men are more likely to report that they have feelings of loneliness in general. And of course, there's the fact that the marriage rate has been steadily declining since the mid-1960s. And then of course, there's the fact that women tend to be significantly more picky when it comes to online dating choices, rating the vast majority of men as unattractive. And thus the bar for a man to actually get into a relationship and get out of his loneliness hole is notably higher. It's also important to point out that when it comes to victimhood perceptions, this is a case where we know that the opposite effect would be relevant. Because when it comes to self-reported data and differences between self-reported data and revealed data, most of the data is actually based on things that men tend to underreport, whereas women tend to actually overreport it, which means that the real data is actually probably worse than this. And then the second reason that we know that the male loneliness epidemic is real is because the arguments against it being real are completely ridiculous, ranging from psychological projection to anecdotal experiences, and of course let's not forget the just make more friends bro argument, or just a standard computer-like woke-schlop midwit misinterpretation of the data. The only argument against it I've seen that kind of makes sense is people claiming that there's kind of a general loneliness epidemic and that women are suffering from it too, which in fact is kind of correct. Women have indeed been reporting less close friends.
No way. Wow, that's so crazy, bro. I like it how he's like, actually it is kind of correct, but actually, fuck that. It's just men. It's just men that are lonely. Like, okay. Alright. You guys are correct, but I don't give a fuck because of my feelings. I just think that men are, like, a lot more lonely just because. Because, look at the numbers. Like, do you really think that men are more likely to underreport? Because I see the line of thinking. Right, men are stoic. Men don't talk about their feelings, okay? But you're forgetting something, okay? These reports are done in confidence. They are done anonymously. Men don't report on their feelings in social situations. But behind closed doors, when nobody's looking, men confide in themselves. They often even confide in certain loved ones, but they're very selective about it. Okay, it's true. And most men do this. Most men have someone to talk to about this shit. Okay, usually another man. Usually. And anyway, I think that women are actually more likely to say like, oh yeah, I have friends, when really... Do they though? Like women, they like to be agreeable, right? It's the easiest path. It's safe for them. They don't want to rock the boat. Okay, historically, that's very dangerous for them. Okay, they die. They die when that happens. They get killed. Okay, they get murdered mysteriously. They're found dead in a fucking ditch, or they're never seen again, or whatever. Like, that's real shit, okay? But times have changed. Okay, it's not like that anymore. But I think that there are still some remnants of that in society, right? And women, my point is I think that women, they typically, not across the board, but they typically make superficial friendships with people, like not really real friendships, just like hi, how are you kind of thing. Men typically, and again, not across the board, but typically don't engage in that kind of behavior as much. Okay, men do it too, but like men are quieter, and that's where this whole idea comes from, that men don't share their feelings. Okay, it's just not true. At least not in my experience. And I think other men know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it's not really like that. It's not fucking... We don't live in, like, the early 20th century anymore. Like, every man that is alive today was raised in a fucking lived-up, libtarded society where, like, men are supposed to... We're like, okay, men, you can share your feelings now. You can start doing that. And we all grew up hearing that. Okay, so... Then we grew up, and it was kind of like, okay, like, there's a time and a place for it. But we all do it, okay? Men do this. They do. So... Anyway, Anyway, I actually think that, like, women are... My point is, I think women are less likely to say, like, oh, yeah, I have no friends. Even though they don't really have a lot of deep connections with other people. They have a lot of superficial relationships with other people. So they're like, I have friends. You don't have any fucking friends. You don't. You have a bunch of snakes in your garden. Okay, they're just waiting to stab you in the back.
As well. However, remember, when it comes to self-reported data, there is again a gender gap. Men tend to underreport these problems where women tend to overreport it. However, it is definitely true that women are suffering from this too. In fact, more so than I suspect a lot of people in the manosphere realize. But I'll get more into that a bit later. Much in the same...
And by the way, I do think, I just want, before we move on, okay, I know I've talked a while about this, but I think most men do experience that as well, right? The whole, like, make as many friends as possible. Like, I had this phase in my life where I was, going to parties and meeting new people, and like I was new in town, making friends, right, yada yada. And I was just like, I thought I had all these friends. I thought I had like a large friend group, but I didn't. You know, I had a bunch of people around me that didn't give a fuck about me, that wanted to use me for, you know, their own gain or whatever. You know, and that's how I ended up feeling in the end. And it's not because it is pointless to go to parties and to make new friends and stuff. It's just that I was casting too wide of a net. I wasn't really, like, looking for like-minded people. I was just, like, being friends with whoever. And that's not really the way to go about socializing. Okay, you should always have a goal in mind for what you want your people to be like. That's just what I think.
Using the internet without a VPN. The reality is, if you are not using a VPN these days, you are susceptible to having your data stolen.
Unethical reacts.
Private internet you're located. Description or scam to be fried women's brains and cause them to be feminism camp. Now, there are a lot of proposed reasons for why this male loneliness epidemic exists, but for the most part, they fall into two camps: the manosphere camp and the woke feminism camp. With the manosphere proposing that the problem is rooted in that social media and online dating has effectively fried women's brains and caused them to become more picky. And thus, they say a large portion of women are all kind of competing for the attention of a small group of top 20 or even top 10% alpha males, also known as chads. Whereas the wokes largely propose that the reason for male loneliness comes down to the fault of toxic masculinity and men refusing to commit, as well as blaming the manosphere and saying that the reason men are lonely is because men are being taught to be mean to women. Or basically, they claim that the reason is misogyny. And now, what's interesting about these two camps is that neither of them are...
No, the reason is white supremacy. That's it. And that, you know, shocker, most of the things that are wrong in our society are you pull back the curtain and, oh, it's white supremacy again. Whoops. Aw, man. But anyway, it's true. It's like this idea of superiority. Are you gonna sit there and act like these fucking incel men don't want like a 10 out of 10 supermodel? Like let's not pretend like their standards aren't way too high, because they are. Okay, they are. Otherwise, they wouldn't be incels. They would have a girlfriend. Okay, because literally all it takes to find a girlfriend is to go outside and exist. If you do those two things, if you go outside and you exist, go to fucking, I don't know, where you're an incel, right? So you're probably a trad, right? You're a conservative. Okay, so you don't want like a, you know, a woke-tard girlfriend. Okay, so like, where do you go? Where can you go to meet women that you'll like? Starbucks. I go sit in a Panera. Go to one of these places and just buy something. You could buy a fucking cake pop for like, well, they probably are like expensive as fuck now, but what, like $4? You can buy a cake pop $4. Okay, go buy a cake pop and sit down. And by the way, okay, that is crazy money for that shit. Okay, like but anyway, that's just the way it is, I guess. That's the way life is now. Fucking $7 for a beverage. Okay, but go buy something and just go sit down and wait. Okay, and I'm telling you, if you do that consistently, like J-Star is putting you on game, bro. I'm telling you. That's all it takes. Just sit
closer to being correct, and you'll find that out as I
and wait.
Because of course, one of the basic problems with the wokes blaming the male loneliness crisis on the manosphere is that
and of course, like, you know, dress to impress. Okay, do your best. Get a haircut. I'm telling you.
this
That's
crisis
all it
significantly
takes.
predates the manosphere. And so that's obviously not a thing.
If you are a man, all you have to do is exist, dog. They will do the work for you. They'll do at least half the work for you. I'm telling
Whereas
you.
one of my mods on Discord pointed out, they're basically accusing Andrew Tate of having a time machine, which very obviously is not a thing. So anyway, to find the real reasons for this crisis, let's start from the beginning. When did relationships between men and women start to kind of show a downward shift? When did things start to go south? And there's a few things we can look at in history that kind of shows when it all started. One of them is to look at the birth rates, which have been steadily falling in most of the developed world since the 1960s, but also in the least developed countries starting around the 1980s. And this is one of those things that's actually a bit complicated. Birth rates can fall for a lot of reasons. It's rarely just one silver bullet, mainly because it's an issue of human action and incentives. This is because at low time preference or delaying gratification generally associated with higher IQ individuals, having children is often a complex long-term cost-benefit analysis. For the most part, people want to have kids, most people anyway, but kids are expensive, and so couples planning a child have to account for that. Whereas at high time preference or just the immediate gratification, it's mostly just the incentive of LMAO, sex feels good. And so it really just kind of comes down to how horny two people feel in the moment. And so birth rates can therefore be affected by issues that affect either of these mentalities. At low time preference, this can mean legal barriers and regulations or issues that make long-term relationships less viable. Whereas at high time preference, it comes down to simpler things like access to birth control or legalization of abortion, things more of that nature. But the main thing showing that the problem is related to the birth rates is how it correlates to the issue of marriage. As I mentioned earlier, marriage rates have been falling, but what really stands out is when you look at...
Bro, fork found in kitchen. Okay, so how is this women's fault? Now pin this on women somehow. Let's go.
The millennials have been getting married less than Generation X and Generation Z.
Come on. Like, I'm an incel. Okay, I'm trying to be in the incel mindset. Okay, get to the fucking point. Blame women. Come on, I'm waiting. When are we gonna blame women?
Getting married significantly less so. I mean, just look at this right here.
Because right now it seems like you're kind of blaming the system. That doesn't make sense. No, it can't be the system. It has to be mostly women. That's got to be it. Like maybe the system's like a little bit of it. Okay, maybe. Yeah. Contraceptives, yeah, finances, blah, 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 blah. Okay, nerd, shut the fuck up. Blame women.
Age 25 are nearly 3 times less likely to be married than those who were born in the 1940s were at age 25. And that right there is huge. Something happened. And because millennials are only slightly better off, we know that the thing that happened very much predates the existence of Andrew Tate as a popular figure. In fact, it very much predates the entire manosphere. Because what we see as the manosphere is something that...
Well, yeah, no shit. Yeah, wow. Wow, Andrew Tate didn't start toxic masculinity. No way. Dude, bro, this is going to be very telling, okay? I went on a lot of boards on 4chan when I was a child. One of them is called R9K. And R9K is an infamously evil board on 4chan, okay? It's basically a bunch of men that are sad and lonely. And mixed in, there are men that, like, want to just feel better about themselves, like they have esteem issues, so they go there to, like, laugh at the lonely men, or whatever. And it's just, like, a bunch of those guys, and they just, like, complain and talk about how they want to kill women and brown people and whatnot. And anyway, like, my point is, I have been in my most formative years, I was entrenched in this shit. Like, I am very aware that it existed before Andrew Tate. That is insane. Did I hear that right? Let's hear it again.
And that right there is huge. Something happened. And because millennials are only slightly better off, we know that the thing that happened very much predates the existence of Andrew Tate as a popular figure.
Yeah. So what he's saying here, in a roundabout way, is that the stupid woke-tards think that Andrew Tate caused the birth decline? The birth rate? Are you fucking serious? That's what you think we're saying? I hate Mentis Wave, man. I hate his bullshit arguments.
Is something that largely rose around the 2010s.
And he's such a smart, like, this is why I say that you can just, whenever you're a right-wing person, you can do whatever. You can say whatever as a right-wing person. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't, the truth doesn't matter. The vibes don't even matter anymore. You can just lie brazenly and misrepresent your opponent completely, and it's fine. But if you are a leftist and you do that, you will be hyper scrutinized by people on your side, people on the left, people on the right. It's so fucking annoying. It's so annoying, man. I can't believe that they get away with this bullshit and nobody calls them out for it. Oh, it's just...
And while it was based on a few
so
earlier
annoying,
communities
man.
that existed in the early 2000s and even
Sorry.
some in the late 90s, those communities were very small. And yet we can
Sorry
see that
for
something was
complaining.
already happening quite a while ago. And so we have to ask ourselves what exactly happened between the 60s and 70s. And the answer is that around this time, globally in first world countries, but especially in the United States, we started to see a whole lot more what you can call entitlement laws that ultimately have the negative impact of disincentivizing marriage, and in many cases actively rewarding what would ordinarily be seen as a poor choice. The worst of the bunch probably being the horrifying interaction of no-fault divorce laws plus alimony. Ordinarily allowing couples to get divorced for no specific reason is really just free.
What about stagnating wages and higher cost of living? What about that? What about the fact that the minimum wage is still fucking $7 whatever an hour? It's fucking crazy. And the cost of a single bedroom apartment is like $2,000 a unit. That's insane.
Association. The problem happens
That's
when you have the
crazy.
state step in and forcibly mandate extraction.
But you're like, no, the problem is divorce court. Like look, I'll be the first one to admit. Okay, maybe not the first one. There are probably a lot of other people in line ahead of me on this one. Okay, but I will still talk about and maintain that divorce court in this country has just like ruined a generation of men. Okay, straight up. Like I don't like divorce court. I hate divorce court. It's bad. It's bad for everybody involved. Literally. Okay, it clogs up the courts, and no-fault divorce was a band-aid on that. Okay, it was a band-aid solution for the courts, not for the families. Okay, not for anyone else. That's what no-fault divorce was for. And I'm not saying that it was unnecessary. Like, they were dealing with a insane volume of divorces. But it's just like, the reason that divorce court is bad is not because men get fucked over, okay? Although they do, okay? They do, and so do women, okay? Women get fucked over in divorce court sometimes too, okay? But it's not about that. It's not about any of that shit. The reason that divorce court sucks is because it is, by design, pitting the two parties against each other, the two parents, who often have children with each other, okay? So just like by default, you have these two people that have kids with each other, right? They have these important bonds with these young people, these young children, and they are being pitted against each other. The court is like, okay, now fight. Now fight. Now both of you fucking fight, okay? And if you try to mediate, it's kind of risky, okay? Like, you have to put a lot of trust in your ex-partner to not sue you, to not take advantage of you, if you're gonna go down the mediation route. Okay, so it's just like, it's so fucked up. The divorce court is so fucked, and people don't even realize it. They think it's like, oh, it's just men, or they think like, oh, like it's about the kids, or it's about and very few people are like it's about the women, okay? But some people say that too, and it's like, it's none of it. It's none of that, man. It is everyone. Everyone is getting screwed over by this, okay? And including, ironically enough, and as much as like other leftists will laugh at me for saying this, okay, the system as well, the people working in the courtrooms, they get fucked over by this process as well, okay? But it's how the laws are designed, because it's how the elite want it, because they want us to fight. They want us to constantly be against each other. They want us to pass trauma down to our children so that they are fucking little flesh automatons that will grow up and get their fingers caught in the sewing machines at the factory. That's it. They want children that will yearn for the coal mines, okay, without any kind of like thought, like, should I be doing this? Is this good for me? Okay, that's why they want everyone to be traumatized. That's why they love this shit. That's why they did this. That's it.
Party to another, even
anyway,
without
rant
knowing
over.
what's at fault. Now, no-fault divorce came into being around the end of the 1960s and was implemented
And these
throughout the
dumb fuck conservatives are like, oh yeah, it's just no-fault divorce destroying the family unit or whatever. It's fucking idiotic, man. Like, yeah, you know what would be so much better? To put more blame on one of the parties involved in divorce. Yeah, that's gonna make it so much better, and make sure it's always the woman. Like, that's the craziest part. Do you think that having no-fault divorce is really gonna help out men that much? Or do you think maybe, possibly in a lot of cases, it's gonna result in men having even more blame placed on top of them, having even less time with their children as a consequence. Because I think it's probably the second thing. I think it's probably the latter.
And if you don't know what that means, alimony is the payments that you have to make to a spouse when you divorce them. Generally, when a couple gets divorced, the one earning less money can file to have a portion of their ex's income forcibly extracted from them by the state and then given to them. And that creates a very not good interaction. Because from a cultural perspective, it also...
Oh man, why do women make less money than men? Why is that? Why is that, Mintus Wave? Is it because of free market capitalism? Is that why? Is it because of your amazing free market capitalism?
How human psychology works. Men are generally expected to be the breadwinners. And so what happens is this actually creates a kind of perverted incentive for women to betray their husbands. If a woman decides that she just wants to cheat on her husband, or any other bad decision that would ultimately result in ruining her marriage, the way the laws work now, that woman is actually rewarded for that behavior rather than punished. Another problem that happened around the same time is the mid-60s is welfare in the US faced a pretty dramatic shift. Mainly the Aid to Families with Dependent Children program, which is basically just giving cash to low-income families, was expanded and had a law on top of it called the Man in the House law, which made families ineligible for this type of welfare if there was some kind of man in the house who was providing assistance. The consequences of which just greatly incentivized divorce, because this made it so that poor families would actually get paid more money by the state by breaking up and no longer being together. Now, fortunately, the specific man in the house part of the law was quickly identified to be very stupid, and so it was abolished quite quickly. However, the problem is these things haven't really been completely abolished. They persist today, just in different forms. AFDC was eventually replaced in the 1990s with TA&F, with certain states effectively enacting the exact same policies. And while the man in the house rule is gone, the fact is there's still broader penalties in terms of welfare when it comes to married families. Because if a second earner joins the household, then that will ultimately reduce their eligibility. This is one of the many things
welfare bad. I know. Welfare bad. Yeah.
Can actually result in less available money to a family that is dependent on welfare. Because if you're, say, getting welfare that is equal to about $10,000 in worth, and you earn $40,000, and you will lose that eligibility if you earn, say, $45,000 in your current predicament, then that increase in pay actually results in less money, which incentivizes people to actually not aim for better careers just to stay on welfare, or in this particular instance, encourage to not get married just so that they can stay on welfare. But anyways, in both of these cases regarding alimony and direct welfare payments, both of them effectively are just the state giving women...
That idea is so fucking stupid, man. Okay, you know, because you want to know what the solution is? See, he's begging the question. Okay, so if that is the case, if that's bad, then the solution is to get rid of welfare, right? Isn't that it? Except it's not. That's a fucking dog shit solution. Because welfare, principally, is a good thing. Think about the premise, okay? And these conservatives will say this a lot. Like, oh, in theory, it sounds good. Yeah, give money to low-income families. Okay, think about that. Okay, so then, why is it bad? Okay, oh, well, it's bad because, you know, it de-incentivizes people from getting better jobs because they want to stay in the welfare ladder. They want to stay in that tax bracket. Well, okay, shouldn't we just universalize it then? Wouldn't that be a better idea? If it's such a big problem, which I kind of agree. You know, it's not fair, it's not right. So... shouldn't we just, like, get rid of that? Or maybe, like, taper off the benefits as you climb up the money ladder or whatever, the corporate ladder? Oh, no, all of those things are communism! No, that's wrong!
Even when the reason isn't a very good one. Both these problems are made worse by family court law, which coincidentally also saw reforms during around the 1970s. In concordance with no-fault divorce, family court stopped being about who did what, and instead became something just kind of de facto awarded women custody. Naysayers to this problem will point to the fact that when fathers do actually try in family courts, they are likely to at least win joint custody. The problem with that logic, though, is that generally legal counsel will only suggest that you actually pursue a legal avenue if you have a chance of winning. And so usually the ladies only lose in family courts if there's something significantly wrong with her, such as her being a crack addict or something like that. And then, of course, let's not forget the Civil Rights Act and DEI entitlements. I've made an entire video on why the Civil Rights Act isn't actually a good thing, but the TLDR of it for anybody who isn't aware of why it's not actually good and why it doesn't actually do what it claims to do is that this act from the 1950s we describe as a Civil Entitlements Act, because it doesn't actually enforce things based on equality, but what it actually does is it enforces things based on equity, which combined with the wage gap lie creates the justification for affirmative action and DEI policies largely going towards benefiting women. And really all of these laws that I've just mentioned all kind of have the same effect to some degree. It is the state to forcibly extract
wow, we wouldn't want to do that, would we? After fucking 400 years of enslavement, we wouldn't want to, like, try and give black people, and then, you know, further decades of Jim Crow, we wouldn't want to try and help out black people. Yeah. Oh no, that's evil. No, we can't do that. No.
And being especially punishing to married men if their wives decide to betray them for pretty much any reason. You might be wondering how exactly is that relevant to male loneliness? Well, now is where the rabbit hole really starts to get deep, because the ultimate result of all of this is that men just end up being disincentivized from marrying in the first place. You see, the problem here is that historically women have always been the gatekeepers of relationships and intimacy, while men have historically been the gatekeepers of monetary resources and commitment. And when you try to use the force of the state to force one to give up what...
I'll be right back. Alright, I'm hungry, so I just turned the oven on. Let's keep going, though.
What they have to another, because basically gender socialism is what's going on here. What actually happens in practice is to just incentivize the person who's being stolen from to refuse to play the game, which is actually one of the basic same reasons that socialism in general doesn't work. The net producers will just refuse to produce, and much in the same way in this...
Okay, but that's not really tracking, though. I mean, that's not tracking, like, by your own logic. Because, I thought that men, like, wanted to start families. I thought they wanted to, but they're, like, incel or whatever. Now you're saying, like, no, actually, men, they don't want to play the game. They're opting out because the game is rigged. It's rigged against them. Like, okay.
Case, what actually happens is that the most efficient tactic for men under a system that effectively screws them over for giving commitment is that they just become less likely to give commitment. And when you combine this with cultural revolutions such as the free love movement of the hippies, which, you know, also happened around 1960s, funny enough, a lot of coincidences here, the winning move of the game for men, especially for men who are the top 20% of men in terms of attractiveness, or high-value men as defined by women, the winning move for them becomes to not play. Put yourselves in the shoes of a man under this system. But not just any man, a wealthy, successful, attractive, tall, 6 foot, 6-pack, 6 figures at least man. If you know that the state...
It's almost like there was something that happened in the 60s, the civil, I forgot what it was called. Never mind.
It is just going to forcibly extract your wealth in the event that your future wife decides to betray you, but you also live in a culture of free love. Then what do? That's right, you just never get married. And that's exactly what a lot of men started doing at the top. They just stopped being interested in marriage, and instead adopted a more pragmatic, but also significantly more degenerate approach of simply entering into casual relationships with women that were doomed to fail. Or as I said earlier on Zitter, these men now, instead of committing, just shuffle through girls, pumping and dumping them before moving on to the next. And so the result of this system is a sort of neo-polygamy dating market, where women are all quote-unquote married to the state, while getting leased out to be used as unwitting whores by chads. This is why the Andrew Tate strategy of self-maxing and then treating women like toys to be used and discarded is so popular. It's degenerate. It's mean, it's morally wrong, but in the system that the state has designed, in terms of where the incentives lead these men to go, it's what works. It's what wins in this rigged game, because you can't get taken to divorce court and screwed.
Yeah, man, the reason that Andrew Tate gets women successfully is because he has money. His money, now he has influence, right? That's it. He's fucking dog ugly. Have you seen him? Like, he's not a fucking Chad. He's not like the genetic Chad. He just has money. That's it. So you're kind of right in that aspect. Like, these men use their wealth to coerce women. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, you're putting it in other words, but that's basically what you're saying. But to say that, like, the state is leasing them out and that's insane. Like, no, man, the government's not pimping out women. That's crazy. That's crazy. But this is a harmful message to tell men. Okay, and it's just not true. Okay, women are not all whores. They are not going to, like, fuck Chad. Okay, just go talk to them. Just go talk to them. I mean, they're not gonna do that if you're in a relationship with them. They're not going to do that at all, actually. Because I think that the reality is you have, there's, like, the bottom 20% of people who have esteem issues, who aren't conventionally attractive, and they aren't fucking anyone. They're incels. This is men and women. Okay? Like I said, bottom 20% of the dating market. And then in the 60% in between like the 20 and or the 21 and 80 percentile range, you have the people in the middle. They are all looking for stable relationships. Okay, this is the average person. Okay, and so these people, they will go months or even years without fucking anyone, dating anyone. Okay, they're looking for long-term partners, and eventually they find them. Okay, this is most, like I said, average person. And then you have the top 20% of people that are, like, conventionally attractive and or rich, and or very charismatic. Okay, and usually they have, like, at least two of those three things. And they are fucking like rabbits, okay? They're like, engaging in very hedonistic lifestyles, or at least that's how conservatives would see it. I see it as, like, self-destructive behavior, sure, but, like, it's whatever, I don't really see it as, like, some atrocity, some amoral atrocity because you have casual sex. My point is telling men that this is the case is just pushing them in the wrong direction. You are pushing them towards the bottom 20%. You're saying, the game is rigged against you, you're not Chad, you're like an average guy, you're ugly, whatever, you don't have money, right? Yada yada. It's like, no, man, you don't need any of that shit. You just need to go outside, okay? You need to learn to groom yourself, right, to a reasonable extent. If you really want a leg up, hit the gym, okay? It's like Hassan always says, any man is a 7 out of 10. Easy. Every man is a 7 out of 10, okay? If they just go to the gym and work out and get a haircut and wear the right clothes and put on cologne. But even if you don't go to the gym, right, all the other shit is like, that's a cakewalk, okay? Like dressing nice and like, you know, maybe watch some YouTube videos or some shit. I don't know. Just wear what you think looks nice. Wear what represents you, okay? And put on a little cologne or something and wash yourself. Not in that order, obviously. Actually, in like the reverse exact opposite order. You want to wash yourself, then put clothes on, then put on cologne. Okay, and of course, like, get a haircut, you know, look put together, and then go outside, and then wait, and then just wait, and that's literally it. Okay, and it might take you a few months, it might take you a year, it could even take you longer. I don't know. It just depends on where you live. It also depends on your strategy, like where you are sitting and existing. But if you are a man, it's so easy to find a girlfriend. It's so fucking crazy. The only single men that are out there are the ones that don't try and the ones that are too picky. Okay, and of course there's a lot of crossover between those two groups. Okay, of course. So, anyway,
for alimony, if you instead just decide to live life in the fast lane and never get married. Very simple as. And here's the thing. The incentives for men to do that were already in place by roughly 1975. And so in the early 80s, you already saw a lot of men living this lifestyle. This was already the bet. It was already the valid play. The only problem with it is that it's not the good play for society as a whole. For social stability, monogamy is what you want. There's a very good reason why there's never really been any kind of grand civilization that didn't put some kind of value on monogamy. There's overwhelming evidence that shows that it is the best system when it comes to raising children, ensuring that they grow up educated and relatively safe, and with low time preference morality. And it's really quite simple from a rationalist perspective. Any civilization that does not pass the baton is ultimately doomed to
I don't agree with that. The reason that statistics will lead you to believe that is because they are inherently biased. Okay, let me explain. When two people get divorced, oftentimes they financially ruin themselves in the process. Oftentimes, the divorce itself is caused by a financial ruining. Okay, so that means that divorces, no matter what the situation is at the beginning, on average, they usually end in poverty. They end in food insecurity. That's it. Okay, that's why it's a harmful environment. If divorces were more gumdrop fairyland type shit, okay, you know what I'm saying? Like if it were a more pleasant, not a more pleasant if it were just a less terrible process for all parties involved, then it would be a lot better. Those statistics would look a lot different. Okay, and just ask anybody that had parents that got divorced. Okay, they're everywhere. I'm one of them. Okay, that's right. My dad went out for milk. Okay, it's true. Ask any of us, and we'll tell you. Usually, the worst part about divorce is your parents fighting, being poor. That's it. Okay, why do the parents fight? Because divorce court. Obviously, that's like reason number one. Okay, and like other shit as well. Okay, yeah, maybe like one of them cheated on the other. Okay, something like that. But like, divorce court just makes it so much worse. It just gives them so much more to argue about. Okay, number two, the poverty. Okay, why does that happen? Because divorce court is expensive. That's it, man.
And yet that's exactly the direction where many laws as well as cultural issues have gone since the post-World War II era. And the thing is, when you look at other first world countries, you'll see that similar, not quite the same, but similar laws have been propping up around the same time. And this is an issue because what's effectively happening is you're just wreaking havoc on the traditional family structure, which is honestly kind of a subject for another video. But more importantly here, back to the dating market and relationships and the loneliness crisis. How does this all add up? Well, the issue here is that if you have the top men in terms of attractiveness no longer really interested in commitment, and instead just constantly going through different girls until they get bored of them, you're going to see a system that looks sort of like this. Let's take a look at this simple chart of men and women ranked from 1 to 10, 10 being the most attractive and 1 being the least attractive in terms of average attractiveness. loneliness. If you've watched any manosphere videos, you've probably seen this before, especially if you've seen channels like Home Math. I'm going to simplify it a little bit, specifically in just the main things that have happened as a result of these laws and cultural issues, as well as why it happened. When you have these men being disincentivized from committing, then naturally a portion of them are just going to play these girls instead of ever giving commitment, because of course the legal system punishes them for committing, so why would they commit? And the girls, they just can't figure it out. Why is it all of these men are not interested in commitment? Why are all of these men so lame? Where have all the good men gone? Why aren't these men putting in any real effort? It's truly a mystery. And now some of the ladies will wise up. They'll go for the 6 out of 7 out of 10 men. And the problem is the slightly above average men, they're suffering from the same incentives. They may have a harder time in the dating market as the guys above them, but in this slightly above average area, men are still attractive enough that they can have options. And again, because the laws disincentivize commitment, all men, regardless of where they fall on this graph, are going to be slightly less interested in commitment, but especially the men at the top, because of course they don't have to give commitment at all, ever. Meanwhile, all of the men down here in the 1 to 5 out of 10 men, well, they're struggling to get anything. And the thing is, this is creating a system that is not fun for anybody. This is unfair to both sexes. If you're a man in this game, you suffer from one of two problems. Either A, you're one of the men who could give commitment and could put in effort, but you're tempted to not do so because the current status system punishes you for doing so, which basically causes us to be significantly more paranoid than we otherwise would be.
This is just an intellectualized way of saying, like, women just want Chad. Okay, and you could just say that, man, like you did. Like, I guess the reason that he's doing this is because in the last video he made about this, he was like, women just want to fuck Chad. They just want to fuck Chad. And it was, like, really cringe, and other people were probably making fun of him for it. I know I was. That shit was funny as fuck. Okay, go check out that video if you haven't seen it yet. It was about the Sabrina Carpenter fucking music video or some shit. I don't know. I think that's what it was.
Maybe if we find a genuinely good woman out there, or you're a man in the bottom half and you're basically not getting any. This is basically where the male loneliness crisis comes in. And while part of it is just because women are significantly more picky, which to be honest is kind of fair, because women do sacrifice more on a biological level in a sense when it comes to rearing children. That's kind of obvious. But another thing that makes it hard is also just the fact that because these men aren't giving commitment, that means that those men stay in the dating pool and just kind of take up all the rest of the women. If a man at the top is spinning multiple plates, as it's sometimes called, playing multiple girls at the same time, well, since the population is roughly 50% men and 50% women, then statistics will have it that a lot of men are just getting nothing at all, which is exactly what's happening. And it's important to point out here that this is not just about sex. It's about getting anything at all. Men at the bottom, the average to below average attractiveness male, the lower value man, it's not just getting some that is the problem. It's getting any kind of attention at all. You often get no love, no intimacy, nothing at all. Sometimes for years, for decades, for some of them never in their life. It's an issue of not even being acknowledged as a human being who wants love just as much as anybody else. And so they often walk through life, often walking through the hardest times of their life with absolutely nobody giving the slightest crap about them. This is something a lot of women have a hard time really visualizing just how bad it can get. Because women, even a below average woman.
Yeah, a lot of men have difficulty visualizing that. I have difficulty visualizing that. Because I feel loved. I have, like, people around me that love me. And I talk about this all the time because people will tell me, what the fuck? Yeah, sure, whatever. People will be like, oh, you're like, you're fucking, you're an incel, you're forever alone, you're a terminally online man on the internet, you just make videos all day. It's like, yeah, I do. I enjoy doing it. My friends and family, they support me. Wow. I am not lacking in interpersonal relationships, and while I don't talk about it on stream, and I am not going to ever, okay, and I expect people to respect that, but I will confirm that I have my intimate moments as well. I can't, nobody can understand this shit. Nobody can understand except for the other men, okay, and the women, okay, but the men don't listen to the women. And I don't think the women really listen to the men that much either. Okay, the forever alone types. But also women, the reason that not as many women fall into this forever alone trap, and I think there is some truth to that statement, although he is severely downplaying the number of women that have this experience as well, it's because of what I was talking about earlier. It might have been in another video, my bad, but I think that women, they form a lot of surface level relationships, friendships, right? Like, you know, the work type, the coworker kind of friendships. Like, I think women are better at doing that. I think that they just they're socialized to do it, right? They're conditioned to be agreeable, to be nice, to make small talk, and men, they don't really do that as much. But guess what? You need to do that. You need to do that if you want to find a partner. Okay, you do. You need to say hi to strangers, to talk to strike up a conversation. Okay, unironically, I think women are way better at not just engaging in the act itself of, like, talking to strangers, but understanding when it is appropriate. Okay, I think women are better at doing that, you know? Anyway.
Can go on online dating and at least get something in her DMs on a pretty regular day-to-day basis. You have to understand, men at the bottom get nothing, absolutely nothing. But that doesn't mean that women are having it easy either. Definitely not. That's where I think some people in the manosphere get things wrong. This is not fun for women. For one, on a psychological level, women don't actually enjoy being used and discarded by men that they find attractive. That's not an enjoyable relationship experience for women. And so women in this system, they're kind of left out in the cold, wondering why is it so many of the men that they're getting with are completely interested in putting in any effort or giving them commitment. And so from the women's perspective, the thing that women are suffering from is that they end up being tossed around in low-value relationships, finding it unreasonably difficult for them to find their, as they sometimes call, Mr. Man. Plenty of the men that they are attracted to are willing to give them attention, but very few of them, often none of them, are willing to be their Prince Charming. And so just how in economic socialism, where the state tries to force wealth from the rich to the proletariat or the poor, but ultimately this just disincentivizes production, thus harming the poor as well. In gender socialism, where the state tries to force men to give resources to women, a lot of men decide to just check out, and thus women end up also getting harmed as well, in the same way that normal socialism harms the poor. That's one of the many problems of socialism in any form, including this form. It's not sustainable, and it has unintended consequences. And because most people meet their partners in online dating these days, we have plenty of data that proves that this is definitely happening. I mean, just compare the swipe rates between men to women and women to men, and it's just wow, it just kind of speaks for itself. But then you look at the fact that the marriage rate is still in the toilet, and you realize that women aren't really getting what they want either. And this all brings us to the next kind of obvious question. If things are messed up, and the direction that first world countries have been taking has clearly not been working, why is it nobody has been able to figure out?
Dating apps are not real life. And I don't know if I believe that, by the way. It could be true, maybe. There are certainly a lot more relationships cropping up from Tinder, Bumble, or whatever the fuck else, Hinge. But I don't see it that way. I don't think so. Nah, I mean, like, I don't have data in front of me, okay, so you can say it's just like vibes or whatever, but like, I don't think that's how people are meeting their partners, even in the today time, in the future world. Okay, like, no, people are still going out, talking to each other, outside, touching grass. Okay, dating apps are not real life. They are not like real life. Okay, it's a gamified dating. That's what it is. That's why the swipe rates are so much different. Okay, these apps they're gamified dating, and they are absolutely flooded with men that are looking for turning dating into a game. Okay, because of what I was saying earlier, women, they don't see dating like a game. Okay, they see it like a fucking connection with another person. Wow, so crazy. So like, women, the way they see dating is, it's like, okay, you meet a new person, you have like the small talk phase. Okay, like, oh, how's your day? Yeah, I'm good. What about you? I'm great, thanks for asking. Okay, talk to you tomorrow, see you tomorrow. Okay, and then like, you become friends. Okay, like, maybe you hang out, you share your interests, and this is when you like find out, like, okay, is this like a friend kind of friend, or is this like a friend kind of friend? You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is to them. Okay, that's what it's like. It's not like this game, like this competition. Oh, and like, it's just not like that. It ain't. But Tinder is. Okay, Tinder is different because it is a game. Okay, the women that are on Tinder, it's a game to them. Okay, and because it's a game to everyone, because it is a game. Okay, that's what Tinder is. So, but it's not like, typically women, they don't see, and this is a major difference between men and women. Like, men, they always kind of see dating as a game. Okay, most men, they see it as competition. If I don't act now, like, she's gonna find another man, or whatever, and that's the way they see it. Okay. At least the ones that I've talked to. Okay, anecdotal, whatever. This is just my opinion, bro. Okay. Anyway. So that's typically how men view dating, and so Tinder just kind of makes sense to men, right? It's like, okay, yeah, like, who's hot, who's not? Yeah, swipe right. Like, this is how Facebook started. Okay, this is like a very male-brained kind of thing. It's because of the way we're conditioned. Okay, and so. Anyway, men flood these dating apps. Like, these dating apps are full of men and not that many women, because most women, they don't like the idea of Tinder. Okay, go ask women about Tinder. Ask them what they think about it. They may reluctantly be like, yeah, I have an account. I never use it, though. Like, I've been inactive forever. And they might even be single, and they're saying that. Right? And it's like, like, interesting. Because, like, all the men that I've known, they've all had Tinder. and they've all been using it. But the women I've known, I can't say I like ask all the women I know about it, but like I know they ain't using it. I know they're not because of the data. And I'm telling you, man, it's because they don't like the idea of it. That's it. It's not even like they, you know, let alone the unpleasant experience that you get on Tinder as a woman. Like you get a bunch of men matching with you. Like every time you swipe right, you get a match. Okay, every fucking time. And then the man's like, hey, and he's like boring, and like he doesn't fucking do the gesture shit. Like it, you know, cause and it's the same thing for men too. Like you get the hey at most, right? It's just boring, okay? Because like it's awkward. It doesn't feel right. It's just like it feels forced. You know, every connection on these dating apps feels forced. It never feels like there was intent on your side, or that like the stars aligned or something. It's always just like algorithmic, you know? And anyway, I think that's why the conversations are always so hard. But that's exactly the way the designers want it to be, because it's what keeps people on the app the longest, looking for that connection, that real shit. It never comes because the platform doesn't allow it. Otherwise, people would of course find someone and then get rid of the app. So anyway, all that is to say is like women, they don't want fucking Tinder. They don't want that shit. The ones that use it hate it just as much as the men that use it. But the difference is like a bunch of fucking men are using it and women are not. Wow.
Figure out a fix for the problem. And
Why
the reason for
is
that is
that?
kind of wrong about what's really causing it. The manosphere is less wrong. For instance, they occasionally recognize the element of the state in this farce. For instance, Home Math recognizes that there is definitely an issue with the state forcibly extracting money from men and then giving it to women, and thus women just kind of keep raising their standards because they don't want to take down. But one issue I see in the manosphere is that they kind of overblame the apps. The apps are definitely, from a cultural perspective, increasing the problem. However, you have to remember that the problem started as early as 1975. This was already the meta based on the current laws, as they have been for a very long time now, for decades. And so what the apps really did is they just made it easier to follow the meta. They just made it so that men at the top can more easily find places to spin, and women can more easily fall for those men. Or in other words, dating apps basically just push our culture to the logical conclusions. We were already heading towards a hedonistic destination, and the apps just allowed us to get to that destination faster. And so banning the apps without also taking a look at the status laws that got us here, that's not really going to fix the problem. That's just going to put the problem back on slow mode. We'll still be going.
Yeah, no, I disagree with you. And you know, I kind of already addressed this, but I think that the dating apps, there's some truth to what you're saying. It's just that they cater to the male perspective on dating, which is why men use it. That's why so many men use it, because it makes sense to them. Women see it and they're like, why the fuck is anyone using this? Like, every woman that I have talked to about Tinder, they've always been like, yeah, I don't like it. It's gross. I don't know why people use it. Only lonely people use it. I don't want to use it. Okay, even if I'm lonely. I don't like, that's what they say. That's the common sentiment I hear from women. But men, on the other hand, they will say, oh yeah, it sucks. I have a terrible time on there, but it's just because I need to make my profile better, right? That's why. Like, I need to get bigger muscles and take better pictures, and that's it. Okay, and that's because men see this shit as a game. Okay, they do. It's just a game to them. It's fucking stupid, man. Men are dumb. Okay, women are dumb too.
Whereas on the other side of the equation,
men are like extra dumb,
that's where things
bro.
get really
I don't
bad.
know.
Another problem that happened around the 60s and 70s is that intelligentsia also started to become infested with an unbelievable amount of neo-Marxist idiocy. And that's a very big problem, because the thing is, the manosphere being slightly wrong about what's causing this loneliness crisis, insofar as that they overblame the apps, well, it's completely inconsequential because they don't really have meaningful influence. I mean, sure, on the internet they do, but in terms of our institutions, they really aren't in control of anything. In terms of
they don't have meaningful influence. Yeah, man. I mean, I don't think so either. It's just like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, wow. They don't have control of our government. No. So anyway, I think that, and you know, maybe some people will say I'm wrong about this. I don't know. But I think that dating apps are more of a symptom, right? They're a symptom of how men see dating, how society at large sees dating. Okay, that's it. That's what it is. It's that simple. Okay, it's not really like the reason that society is terrible. Also, no one is saying that. Who the fuck is saying
mainstream journalism and mainstream media.
Don't get me wrong, I hear a lot of people complain about dating apps, of course. They're terrible. But I don't really hear, like, they're ruining society. Like, that's a very right-wing thing to
academia,
say.
as well as much as the state and politicians. Well, the manosphere has absolutely nothing in that regard compared to the woke school camps, who have fully embedded themselves into those institutions.
But even
and so
they
in addition to
aren't
what's being
really
significantly more wrong, it also has much more widespread consequences, because their incorrect beliefs are what's being taught to the public en masse. Their view is the one that's considered politically correct. And what's interesting is that just like this crisis goes back further in history than most people realize, wokeness and it being wrong about it also goes back to around the same time. One of the big problems, at least in academia around the 60s and 70s, is that they started mass adapting the idea of tabula rasa or blank slatism under the misguided belief that anything to the contrary could have a bigoted outcome. And this created a very weird incentive within academia for researchers to publish kind of nonsensical data with nonsensical reasoning behind it, so long as it resulted in the conclusion that people were biologically equal. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, whatever. I'll be right back again. I'm gonna go put my snack in the... And we're back.
Today that this kind of thinking actually makes bigotry and sexism and racism, etc., actually significantly worse. But back then it wasn't immediately obvious from an empirical sense. It was already obvious by a rational sense, but the empirical angle wasn't really quite there yet, and so people started pushing out really bad research that kind of just got a stamp of approval on it simply because it conformed to the politically correct narrative. The extent of which is an entire different rabbit hole, which I've actually covered in many of my other videos already on this channel. But for the sake of this video's topic, the male loneliness crisis and gender relations, the main problem was the tabula rasa research in regards to gender, which is by far the absolute stupidest version of tabula rasa. Because when it comes to different ethnic groups, you can at least try. There are at least some arguments you can make for why behavioral and cognitive differences are mostly environmental. Arguments that completely fall apart when you're talking about differences between the sexes. And so the cult of tabula rasa has a really horrible track record when it comes to gender science. An almost comically bad track record, actually. Examples of this nonsense includes trying to claim that men and women are actually equal in regards to physical strength because of quote-unquote relative strength, whatever the heck that means, and other meaningless arbitrary variables while ignoring overall strength, which of course after a narrative review were found to be pedantically correct on the things they measure, but overall completely irrelevant. Then there's John's money theory that all gender roles and identity are learned and they're all just blank slates, man, up to the age of 2, which despite this theory being heavily refuted, still finds itself being thrown.
Okay, you are conflating biology with gender. They're not the same thing. There are gender roles imposed by society on people who are ascribed a gender because of their sex. That's it. That's all it is. Gender is just expression. It's the way you act, the way you talk, the way you dress, your fucking haircut. That's it.
Around by wokes today. And then of course there's the claim that men and women have no innate psychological differences, alongside now refuted research claiming no difference in spatial or mathematical reasoning. And then there's that especially damaging ones that claim that physical female beauty standards are entirely the result of culture and that men would therefore find Gigantosaurus attractive if the evil
beauty standards are... You're really gonna argue this? Really? You're gonna say beauty standards aren't imposed by society? Really? Really, beauty standards are just... They're just natural. Yeah, even though that completely goes against, like, all of history's societies. Wow. Well, oh, yeah, it's just natural. Yeah. Yeah, beauty standards are just natural. That's it. Yeah.
Brainwashing us by showing us fit women in the media.
Genius.
Special recognition because part of where the justification in modern feminism for the all women are tens mentality comes from, despite the studies behind it also having been very heavily debunked. And then of course there's a bonus point for kind of fringe weirdos back in the day pushing a very weird conspiracy theory that the reason women were on average smaller than men was because of the patriarchy somehow ensuring that girls were being fed less calories, which was probably honestly just a misunderstanding of studies on food allocation in South Asian cultures. And the saddest part is that everything I just mentioned is just a small drop in the bucket of the absolutely insane amount of research pushing tabula rasa in ways that reveal themselves to not really make much sense when analyzed. TLDR, gender studies is filled with nonsense, and I predict that in the next 20 years or so much of the establishment narrative on it will be dissolved and revealed to be completely fraudulent. But anyway, how this pertains to our loneliness crisis is quite simple. How can the establishment hope to correctly understand and fix this crisis if they are busy sticking their heads in the sand and dragging their feet when it comes to acknowledging the most basic differences between men and women? And the answer is they don't. They just end up pushing total nonsense. And it really shows. If you read mainstream corporate media on dating advice, most of what they have to say is completely ridiculous. For instance, a dating advice magazine for girls on the shelf will usually tell them things like you deserve a high value man because you just do, and that they should sleep around, get knocked up.
Yeah, you know what'll be debunked? The woke tards. But you know what won't be debunked? My fucking bullshit ideas about how women are whores that want to fuck
being a single mother is empowering,
yeah,
for some reason. The media fills women's heads with absurdly wrong things on a constant day-to-day basis. One recent example, very recent example that actually caused me to delay this video slightly, is this video from Salon, where they claim that they totally understand the reason for the male loneliness crisis. And so I'm going to quickly go over it because it beautifully emphasizes how mainstream press and really our institutions in general truly have no idea what they are talking about when it comes to how men ended up in this sorry state and how the dating scene got so screwed up and why so many things regarding family and marriage seem to be going downhill. And of course how they have even less of an idea how to fix it. I will not clip it because Salon could potentially abuse content ID. Instead, here's a quick rundown of their brilliant ideas, and a link will be in the description below so you can see the video for yourself if you want to check if I'm misrepresenting them, which sadly I am not. Anyway, the video starts out immediately accusing the manosphere of mainly wanting women to lower their standards, and that's somehow the entire thing behind the male loneliness crisis, which aside from that just being a bad-faced straw man of the issue and what the general manosphere and red pill community is saying, it also shows they don't really understand what's going on, because the issue isn't so much just something that can be easily fixed by women lowering their standards. The problem is a lot more complicated, and it kind of comes down to the basics of how dating works. The dating market is essentially just a numbers game. There are Y number of people on the planet, and X number of those people will find you attractive, and so you kind of have to filter for X, and basically find a partner for which the attraction is mutual. Pretty basic on that level, to be honest, but it is slightly different for men and women because again, men are the gatekeepers of commitment and women are the gatekeepers of intimacy. And so,
alright, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What were we talking about? Dating market basics. Oh, I haven't laughed enough during this video. Oh, this shit is kind of funny, man. I'm sorry. I've not been lighthearted enough. It's because I'm hungry. I can't wait for my tasty snack to be done. Only like 30 seconds left. Okay, Y number of women on this planet, X number of women will find you attractive, filtered for X. This is insane, man. All women think this way. Or all women think this way. I'll be right back. Alright, back to this
men kind of have to
bullshit.
move quickly to ensure that they're not getting friend zoned, and women have to make sure that the men that they're investing their time into are men that will actually be interested in them enough to commit to them. If you're a woman and you don't want to get played, the answer to your problems is to stop chasing the most attractive man you can find, and instead look for the men that are actually interested in being loyal to you, and then find a man from that pool of men that you find attractive as well, and go for that man instead. And the issue that a lot of the broader manosphere points out, really any of us who understand the dating market, is that modern institutions don't really explain this to women at all. Women are just kind of told that, oh, you just deserve the man that you want, and he'll just love you for who you are no matter what, and if he does it, then he's a misogynist loser or something. And within mainstream journalism, because they're very heavily in favor of the woke idea, there's also a very big problem with hypocrisy, because female beauty standards are significantly more highly likely to be portrayed as politically incorrect, whereas on the flip side, they have no problem saying that there's such thing as a high value man. Hence why this video from Salon is so quick to say, oh, it can't be women's fault, it must be the men's fault. And they do it simply because it's more politically correct to say, even though it's obviously self-contradictory and wrong to anybody who thinks about it for more than a few seconds. Which is completely bizarre because it treats men as if we have no agency. But of course we do. Men are not going to give commitment to a woman who we don't think is worth it. So it's not so much that women need to lower their standards, it's that women are being taught to kind of have the wrong idea of how their standards should even work in the first place. They're being taught that they don't need to filter for anything, that the man that they want to just be the man that they deserve, and that all women are 10s, and any man who suggests that a woman might be better off if she takes any kind of responsibility for herself, then that man must be an incel or something like that. It is a completely ridiculous double standard. And when you frame that as saying, oh, women should just lower their standards, that's an oversimplification of the problem. It's intentionally not understanding it. And I think they do this because they don't want to really acknowledge how the incentives against marriage have crept up over the last 60 years. And so as a form of sticking their heads in the sand, they just ignore the problem outright. Then the next thing the Salon video does is they of course just blame the male loneliness crisis on men and the general manosphere, further showing that they have no concept of how far back this has been happening. As I explained earlier in this video, the reasons for this crisis go back far in history, over 60 years, and are rooted in laws that ultimately incentivize the destruction of the family structure, which of course significantly predates the manosphere. So obviously the manosphere cannot be at fault. And so this is just a case of them confusing cause and effect. The manosphere is more or less a response to the male loneliness crisis. It's comprised of influencers who are talking to young men and explaining to them how to fix their situation, and largely from a standpoint of empathy, something that men are just kind of not getting from the mainstream institutions, which is again part of the real reason that the crisis exists. It portrays it as a right-wing, left-wing thing, which is actually just empirically incorrect. Right-wing men actually tend to be more successful in relationships and are actually more likely to be married. And also the incel community is more or less split down the middle. They're more in the center. They're equally Democrat and equally Republican or whatever. And so while there is a growing left and right political divide between men and women, that's not actually the cause of the male loneliness crisis. It's again just another one of the symptoms. And of course trying to imply that conservative or right-wing men in any way are they incels is just objectively not true. The video also proceeds to just kind of cherry pick bad examples from the manosphere, tries to claim that being a trad wife somehow means when women have no rights, which is totally false.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Incel men are Democrats too. Source? Is this like self-identifying incels? Like what pool of is this? Who are the men that you're referring to? I don't believe that. I straight up, I'm not saying that like Democrats are like completely mentally sane, right? Of course not. But no, like basically, I'm not saying there are no like liberal incels. Okay, look at Destiny. He's a right-leaning liberal, right? He's fucking obviously the type that could be forever alone. I mean, he's got money, so. Yeah. But if it weren't for that, anyway, it's not that complicated, man. Dating isn't as complicated as you're making it out to be, okay? There is some truth to what he's saying here. Common types of women and what they're looking for. Common types of men and what they're looking for. Okay. Okay. That's not the insane part. The insane part is that, like, this is the main reason that there are so many men that are forever alone. No, man. That's not it. Because all they would have to do is go outside and talk to women. Okay, so why aren't they doing that? Oh, that's right. It's because of all of the hate, all of the propaganda, all of the animosity towards women in these online spaces. This propaganda that tells them there's no point in going outside. There's no point in trying to find a woman. No woman will ever love you. And even if one were to convince you that she loved you, she'd just cheat on you. She'd just fuck Chad. That's what these guys hear. Anyway.
We can absolutely choose a traditional lifestyle while having the same rights as men. But perhaps the weirdest thing that the Salon video does is it talks about Alyssa Wu and then conflates the manosphere with the Goonersphere, which makes absolutely no sense because if you're familiar with the manosphere, you know that they generally push traditional gender roles and they're actually very much against porn. A lot of them believe that porn should be outright banned or axed, or the more libertarian sectors of the manosphere simply believe that porn should be more looked down upon and properly.
Okay, yeah, they might say that. Are you saying that there's no room for crossover there? Because I see a lot of room for it. Yeah, just because incels think that porn is bad doesn't mean that they don't be watching porn. Actually, pretty much the only people that I know that think that porn is bad are the ones that watch way too much porn. Wow. Wow.
Recognize the high kind preference.
Crazy.
And what makes this so bizarre is that Salon understands this because they talk about it. They talk about a guy running for political office in the manosphere who wants to add a syntax to OnlyFans. And yet they conflate those two communities as being exactly the same anyway, just because they can occasionally find some overlap if you dig hard enough.
No, not if you dig hard enough. It just makes sense. These incels, they obviously have self-esteem issues. You know, they think pretty lowly of themselves. Okay, and they're addicted to porn. So naturally, they think, well, I'm bad, and I like porn, so porn must be bad.
And Discord to find some fringe community.
That's the reason I suck.
To portray the manosphere as lay creepy. It's entirely
because I watch porn
character to make up for them having a lack of any facts. Because that is, of course, the biggest problem with what Salon has to say. The cherry on top of it all, which is what they don't have to say. At no point in the video do they provide any kind of serious analysis of the dating market or how it works. It doesn't address the statistical problems that show up in dating apps at all, and of course, it provides no explanation for how it happened, other than a loose implication that it is somehow all to men's fault. But they don't actually break any numbers down or show you what the problem is in any kind of meaningful detail. And there's really just two reasons they do this. The first and most obvious one is that they just don't really obviously know anything. Mainstream media again has no idea what's going on, and therefore no idea how to fix it. But the other reason, I suspect, is because some of them may be kind of aware that they're partially at fault for the problem. Because one of the contributors to this loneliness crisis is, of course, the media gaslighting people for over 60 years now with tabula rasa and politically correct woke nonsense that isn't true, and ultimately just justifies the problem's continuation. And the thing is, when someone or an organization is at fault for a problem, one thing they can do to try and avoid responsibility is to project that fault somewhere else. And that's really what Salon's video actually is. It is just a massive amount of psychological projection. It is effectively just stereotypical corpo media journo slop, where a clueless leftist progressive blames all young men for a problem, despite the fact that the problem predates when young men were born by multiple decades. And so to make up for Salon's failure, I'm going to conclude this video with just that. How do we actually fix this crisis? How do we fix this problem? What can be done about all the loneliness in modern clown world? Which actually isn't really an easy question because it's caused by multiple layers of legal, status, technological, and cultural reasons. But it also can't solely be blamed on the fault of women either, as no individual is actually in control of the institutions that are driving the problem. It is the fault of the system and the ludicrous propaganda it uses to maintain itself. So to actually fix it would require a multi-step process. First is on the state end of things. We need to get rid of the incentives that are preventing men from wanting to marry, and thus incentivizing men to kind of just use and discard women, because that's actually one thing that also makes the problem worse, which has actually been identified by the manosphere. A lot of the manosphere actually does recognize that there is a problem that is often called ruining virgins for everybody else. They kind of know that playing women isn't good, but the current system kind of incentivizes it as well. So let's start there. Abolish alimony for no-fault divorce, and make it so the spouse who initiates divorce can't collect alimony either. Alimony is honestly a very outdated concept anyways. Another thing is reforming welfare and getting rid of the welfare trap by either abolishing it or at the very least reform it into a negative tax income bracket. That way people would still be getting assistance, but there would no longer be a welfare cliff anywhere, and thus the perverted incentive for families to break up would be gone as well. Although preferably it'd be better to just privatize welfare. And on that note, we also have to
or you could universalize it. Wow.
Issues of married families. There's actually a lot of really weird tax laws out there that specifically make things harder for married couples. The libertarian in me would like to just remove the taxes altogether, but to be more reasonable, one thing we can do to just at least incentivize marriage and incentivize commitment again is to just double the standard tax deduction for married couples on top of the deduction.
Also, I'm not going to repeat all of it because I already did, but you know, I already said it, I mean, in this video. But abolishing alimony is not going to fix the problems, you know, because of all of the problems that I was talking about with divorce court. Wow. Wow, crazy.
Because as it currently stands in taxes, a married couple can combine their standard deduction. That's kind of how it works, but they don't really get much else out of that. Another thing is to just abolish the payroll tax. Married couples are increasingly finding themselves in a situation where one of them is in the gig economy, and the way the payroll tax works is it just unnecessarily increases their taxes for that. And so the best thing would be to just get rid of it. It's one of the worst taxes we have anyways. It's just a lame way for the government to sneakily increase people's income taxes without people noticing it. And then another thing is to abolish all DEI programs and abolish the disparate impact standard. The best person for a job should get the job, and if that means the man gets the job, then we should view that as a good thing. And of course, reduce government spending, so that way the same nonsense doesn't just show up as inflation. Which brings me to the institutional side of things. I'm personally a big fan of just firing every single state bureaucrat at this point. That may sound like scorched earth, but they have abused their positions, and they have been pushing absolute nonsense into our society, and so they have to go. And then on the private institutions, things like private academia and whatnot, that's a bit more complicated, but mainly it will just require more people being willing to put in actual good, high-quality reputations of the cult of tabula rasa and how much of their research is just ideologically motivated nonsense. And then finally fixing things on the personal end, because of course there's only so much that an individual can do about the state in our institutions. So if you're a woman and you're single and you're having trouble finding a man who will actually put in effort, the biggest piece of advice for you is to just realize that you have been lied to. Learn to filter men for the men that seem interested in putting in effort towards commitment, and stop blaming the manosphere and patriarchy and misogyny on the fact that men are not always giving you what you want, because that is not the cause of the problem. Also, self-improvement is good actually. One weird way that
no women are watching
it is considered politically incorrect to tell women that they aren't perfect. So a lot of mainstream dating advice offers no self-max advice for women, while the manosphere provides plenty.
Especially not this late in the video. Why do you think a woman would be watching 40 minutes into the fucking video when you just spent the last 39 minutes and 45 seconds talking about how, oh, men, it's so bad for men, except maybe sometimes it's bad for women, but it's mostly bad for men. When
Self-max advice for men.
I can't find a girlfriend.
Advice from the manosphere than they will get from corporate media. For this, I would again recommend Matt. He does a pretty good job of occasionally breaking things down for the ladies as well. But then, lastly, for the men who are currently in this pit of loneliness, the best advice I can give is focus on the self-maxing you can do rather than the thing that you feel least confident in. Like for example, if you're a man and you're 5'6" and you find yourself getting rejected by women simply because you're not as tall as they would like you to be, the thing is you can't really fix that. But what you can do is fix your mentality towards it. You can learn to kind of just stop giving a shit, and so that way you'll be less self-conscious about it. That way you can focus on self-maxing the things that you actually can self-max, which will make you more confident in social situations. And of course, for both genders, just make sure you're
Just be yourself, bro. Just be yourself, bro. You Yeah, I mean, the real answer to, like, being short, and, like, people call me Short King all the time on the internet. I don't know why, because you can't tell how tall I am. It's just because I'm scrawny now. I assure you, if I were, like, jacked, if I were still fucking ripped, okay, they wouldn't be saying that. Sad, man. I ain't going back to the gym, though. That shit ain't worth it. Anyway. If you are a short person and you're a man and you're short, you know, it happens. It's, you know, but it's not like it's not Jover. It's not over for you. Okay, I'm telling you, I've known plenty of short kings that bag some, you know, some very attractive ladies. I'm telling you. But the way to go about that, Mentis Wave is sort of onto something here. He's sort of right, okay, but he's not bringing it home, and that's because he's fucking stupid. Okay, the real way around this problem, this dilemma of being short, is to just understand that that while being short as a man, it's not attractive, right? It's also not like Jover. Okay, you're not like you're fine. Okay, you'll be fine, bro. It's not like it's just one thing. Like it is one trivial, superficial part of your identity, and it doesn't even have to be that, but like your person, your presentation. Okay, it's just not that big a deal. It really isn't. Like there are unironically other superficial qualities that are way more important. Okay, like whether or not you're fucking muscular. Okay, I'm telling you that works too. Go to the gym, man. Okay, or don't. You know, like women. It's like people always say. They're attracted to confidence. You know, just like fucking don't, like, please understand, whether you're a short man or not, or whatever, or you're a woman, okay, people are gonna find you unattractive. Get over it. But who cares? Who fucking cares? Like yeah, people call me ugly. Am I ugly? Hell no, I'm hot as fuck. That's crazy. It's crazy to call me ugly. Okay. I may not be model worthy, right? I don't know. Maybe I never really tried. But maybe I'm not. But I'm not ugly, man. And neither are you. Barely anybody's ugly, and you probably aren't one of them. So, like, but anyway, even still, people are gonna call you ugly. So? Oh no. Oh, the woman thought I was too short. Oh, better cower away and be a incel. And hate all women. Like, that doesn't really make sense, man.
The numbers game. If you're a man, you need to move on to the next girl if she just isn't into you, or else you'll get one-itis. And if you're a woman, you need to stop aiming for the moon and instead focus on the men who are actually interested in committing to you. Get your man from that pool of men. Never try to fix a man who won't commit. You will not fix a man who won't commit. I mean, trust me on this. I knew from before I even asked my wife to start dating me that she was the type of woman that I was willing to give commitment to if things worked out, which luckily for us things worked out. Whereas if you're in some kind of a situationship with a man and he's constantly flaking on you, constantly blowing you off, and he's spending time with other girls, then spoiler alert, you're not going to get what you want. But ultimately, TLDR, what everybody needs to do is we need to recognize that the structure of the system is what's at fault. We need to at the very least recognize that the current system actively incentivizes men and women to screw each other over. It incentivizes men who are 8s and 9s and 10s to go on dating apps and basically find girls to play instead of getting married because the incentives
that very basic premise I can agree with.
The system incentivizes women to betray their man because the system doesn't actually require them to take responsibility for themselves anymore. Because ultimately, gender socialism is not sustainable. It will end eventually one way or another. The question is, will we be smart enough to replace it with a better system before it collapses? Because as long as the male loneliness crisis continues, we are inching closer and closer to that collapse every day. And that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support my content, you can do so by tipping me on Ko-Fi, or by becoming a member of the channel, or joining me on Subscribestar, or by buying some merch, or again by checking out this video sponsor Private Internet Access. Thanks again for watching. That is all. Till next time.
Yo, he put Hakeem.
Again for watching. That is all. Till next time.
Oh, wow.
Imagine it's the year 2.
He refuted bad empanada. Oh, this was 2 years ago. Well. Anyway, great video, Mentis. Wonderful. And by great video, I mean fucking dog shit.